Welcome back, everyone. It's another midweek roundup. Bit of a shorter week this week, but we have a couple topics to discuss. We had a UCL draw on Monday morning. We'll talk about that. Some other soccer news, some controversial developments in the Super League, but we'll get to that. We'll start with a couple of the cup matches we had this week. England had the FA Cup. We had Chelsea.
EFL Cup. It was the EFL Cup.
I'm sorry. We had Chelsea actually make more progress towards some silverware after spending billions of dollars. How do we feel about that game?
Yeah, I know. It was a good result for them in the end. I mean, I didn't think Chelsea played well in this game at all. They got lucky. Kieran Trippier made yet another mistake. He's been having a horrible stretch of games. I mean, I think he's made a mistake that's led to a goal at least once in the last 6 or 7 games for Newcastle. It's been pretty rough for him. So, I mean, that mistake right at the end let Mudryk score, and they were able to go to penalties and come away with the win. Petrovic made a fantastic save, I thought, to win the game in penalties. It was a great save to his left high. And I don't know. The commentator said it was an easy height for him, but I thought it was a pretty impressive save in my opinion. He had to get there, and he made it his save. So, and he was the hero. So good for him. Shout out to Rev. Shout out to Jordi Petrovic.
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle haven't been that great as of late, but still a really good side. So, I mean, it's good confidence boost for Chelsea to get a win against a solid team. Granted, it's the cup, a little bit different, but a little bit concerning. They lose Enzo, and from what I saw, he's got a pretty rare condition thing that requires a lot of rest, and I think it's something Emil Smith-Rowe has been dealing with. So, could be a long-term injury for him that could make that price tag look even worse. But it looked like a pretty dominant display, so hopefully they can, not that I want them to do good, but for their fans' sake, that they can get a good run of games going.
I mean, they play Middlesbrough in the next round, so
yeah,
not to discredit Middlesbrough, but there's every reason they should be in the final of this tournament, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll just be a consolation prize for them, obviously, to, bring home something to rectify all that money spent. So we'll see how that goes. And then just another fun game in terms of goals scored. Liverpool cruised by West Ham 5-1. Obviously, a little bit of a rotated side in a couple positions, but pretty strong in total. And they just absolutely smoked West Ham 5-1.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like West Ham really didn't even show up for this game. I know they had a couple changes at the back. I mean, Salah didn't start either for Liverpool, but
right.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed in West Ham's display in this game. And Liverpool, it was a typical Anfield performance from them. I mean, they were rocking from the get-go. And they never looked back once they started scoring. I mean, it was the floodgates were open, so.
Yep.
Yeah, Liverpool really fortunate. I think they probably have one of the deeper teams in the Prem this year because they can do 4 or 5 changes right here, and they still have a really, really strong lineup. But yeah, West Ham, not the case for them because looked like they were really missing Paqueta and Ward-Prowse throughout the early parts of that game.
I agree. Yeah, I felt they were a little bit overrun in the midfield, and that really was the story of the game.
Yeah, obviously maybe some tired legs too as we get into this time of the season where there's a lot of congestion, and then they get a little bit of a break, and then hopefully we see what happens come January. Then we'll move to Spain, where there's a couple catch-up games in the league. The league's mostly on a break. I think there'll be one more game this weekend. Mostly on a break until after the holidays. We see Atleti, one of the bigger games, 3-3, a 6-goal thriller. A red card Atleti's way. Dropping points, though. Atleti not replicating that dominance that we talked about in the UCL in their group and dropping points in the league.
Yeah, I thought my takeaway from this Atleti game was very similar to what I said in the last episode. I thought that they were struggling with a bit of tiredness in the side, and they haven't been rotating enough, and I think we saw that. That was the case here. I mean, they blew a 2-0 lead in the second half to Getafe, and I felt like they were the better side throughout the game, and they probably should have came away with the win, and they didn't. And I think that really tells you where they are in terms of their squad depth this season. I think that's something that's not really their strong suit, and it might affect them when they go deeper into tournaments like the Champions League, as we're going to talk about later. Mm-hmm. So we'll see where they go from here, because they've been kind of struggling a little bit lately. They've dropped points again. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jay.
they're definitely nowhere near as strong as they have been in the past. But yeah, it's just I feel like Salvage gets a red card. It does something stupid every game I watch him play.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
no surprise there. But
that
yeah, it's just
definitely doesn't help either.
shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah. I mean, credit to them for, keeping that lead, getting the lead after playing with 10 men since minute 38. So, there's a bit of credit to be said there, but obviously, like you said, tired legs, especially when you're a man down, doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Barcelona get the 3 points right on paper, but squeezing a victory out of Almeria, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah,
And,
this was a game I watched.
Yeah.
The Barcelona Almeria game, and I have to say, going into it, if you look at the league table going into the game, Almeria bottom of the table. They haven't even won a game this season,
Right.
and you would expect Barcelona to blow them off the pitch. And to be quite honest with you, I thought Barcelona were pretty poor in this game again. They really allowed Almeria to play their football. Like I've been saying the last few episodes now, they stand off. They let everybody do what they want, and it's really annoying to watch if you're a Barcelona fan. I'm not, but if I was, I would be really, really disappointed watching them play these last few weeks because this is just not what you should be doing. I think defensively, I think it's poor coaching. I think Xavi's got something that he needs to sort out here. I know they come away with the 3 points, but to squeeze out a 3-2 win, concede twice to the team that's bottom in the league, I just think that's not good enough.
Yeah,
and I mean to rely on Sergio Roberto to score twice. I mean he almost had a hat trick in the game as well. That's just I don't know. I have a lot of questions of Xavi and of Barcelona right now.
Yeah. I mean, from a goal scoring point of view, right there, they had 30 shots, a lot of chances, obviously created a bunch, but it just seems like when it comes to these Barcelona games, it's like one or the other and never both. Like they can never get good attack going and defend well at the same time. Yeah. They either hold out the other team to not a lot of goals but can't score themselves.
Yeah. And they make a lot of mistakes, dude. A lot of simple mistakes.
Yeah, speaking of mistakes, Inaki Peña, I believe it's pronounced, error led to a goal. I mean, he's just not having that many good games. Barca probably really miss Ter Stegen, who's not going to be back until like March, I believe.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's going to hurt, especially as they try to move into Europe. Obviously, going to be a lot of knockout games before March. So
yeah,
interesting one there.
In a vacuum, this game isn't a big deal, right? Like you can have bad games, you can struggle against the lower bottom half of the table squad, but for it to be happening so consistently over the last few weeks, that's where the concern starts coming in.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not so much because obviously they get the 3 points. That's what matters at the end of the day, especially in the league because it's not so much about goal difference and stuff. But yeah, it's a reflection of who you're winning against and how you're doing it, and there's just more questions to be asked. Like 100%. We've said that probably every episode now about asking questions about Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to see how they answer them. And then we have our other two heavyweights, Real Madrid squeaking a win, 1-0. Also playing with 10 men. Seems to be the trend in Spain this week. Yeah, Lucas Vázquez coming up big for them.
Mm-hmm.
Our star boy didn't score, but he can't do it every week, right?
Yeah, I kind of was disappointed with Jude in this game, to be honest. Actually, Real Madrid as a whole, I felt like this game kind of sucked.
Yeah.
It was not a very good watch, in my opinion. But yeah, Jude just seemed a very frustrated and tired figure in this game. He didn't seem like himself, really. So I think the nice little break that they have in La Liga coming up is going to be welcome for him.
Yeah. Credit to Real Madrid because that puts I think on goal difference in first place, tied with points with Girona. Which going to Girona, they tie 1-1. Against Real Betis, that's not a bad side. They're pushing 7th. They're trying to make their way into those European spots. So I guess credit to them. Obviously, you can't be on your high horse the whole season. Got to be a couple slip-ups. It's just how they react to this game now. That will
I agree. I mean, I did manage to watch this game. I thought it was actually a very good game. Even though it was 1-1 on paper, I thought it was fantastic. It was an end-to-end from minute one. Both teams were going for it right from the start, and they both wanted to take 3 points. And I think Girona didn't have their best game, in my opinion, in the last few games that they've watched in comparison, but I thought Betis were fantastic in this game, and I think that they would probably feel a little bit hard done by to not come away with 3 points, but they scored late in this game. Petzela scored a great goal. The ball fell to him off a corner, but I felt like Betis had a lot of chances to score, especially in the first half, and they probably could have came away with something more. And Girona should probably feel a little bit lucky to come away with just a draw.
Yeah, big test will definitely be next game where they have Atletico in the new year. So if they can bounce back, then they can prove that they belong here at the top. If they struggle against it's a beatable Atletico team. They haven't been that great either. So if they can get a good result against them, then they
where
can
is
prove
that
that they
game? Is
belong.
it in Atletico or is it in Girona?
I believe it is in Girona. Yep.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a big game for them.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Almost, it kind of looks like it would be a good game to be tested because obviously Atletico, like we just talked about, not in a great spot. So if they can catch an uneasy Atletico, which is still a good side, prove themselves, give themselves the confidence, it'll be good for their season. Continuing with our speedy overview of the games, we'll move to Germany, where a club that we just keep talking about dropping points, Dortmund, again, just not living up to previous, expectations and seasons, and just having this subpar season, just trailing farther and farther down the table from first.
That
not much else to
league say title. Them, really.
Yeah, it's the elusive league title that just is escaping them. Just another draw against, a decent side, but still.
I think we're really starting to see that they miss Jude, and I think they're having a little bit of hangover from the push that they had for the title last season. It went all the way to the final day, and I think to lose like that in the fashion that they did kind of takes a lot of that takes a lot out of you. So
yeah, and I think they've always been fantastic at replacing their talent, but it just seems like the last few seasons, the players they've lost just. The people coming in are just nowhere near the same talents. Granted, you're replacing Haaland and Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, but they're impossible.
There's nobody. I don't see enough talent there to kind of replace the contributions they were giving. So they're in a little bit of a tough spot right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because you say that they usually replace their talent, but it does feel like it takes a little while usually for them to do so. It takes like a season or two, and obviously they're in that swing season, but it's also a thing like, what is their game plan when it comes to the transfer market? Because they constantly do that. They'll sell to Bayern, they'll sell to other big clubs that they play in the UCL, and it doesn't seem like they're trying to retain talent to win things. It's just a weird thing because I've always been a fan. I don't watch too much of the Bundesliga, but when it comes to watching those games, I do like Dortmund. I love the old teams I used to see when I was younger. But yeah, it's just interesting how they go about business. Elsewhere in Germany are our league leaders still. Leverkusen, 4-0, still undefeated. Obviously a great victory.
Patrick Schick hat-trick in the first half.
Yeah.
Great performance from him. He started this game. They gave Victor Boniface a rest, and then Boniface came in the second half, and he scored. So, can't ask for much more from Leverkusen. I think it's a pretty expected result against Bochum. They're not doing too well on the table right now, but good for them. We already knew they were going to confirm themselves as winter champions last week, but it's nice to see that they can keep winning and keep proving that they are a team to be feared in the Bundesliga this season, and they're not to be second guessed.
Yeah. Another assist apiece for each of the wing backs too. So they're just in great form.
Yeah, we definitely killed that most recent analysis we made about Leverkusen when it comes to the wing backs and Florian Wirtz, all assists for that hat trick. And I think it's such a confidence boost for the squad itself when one of their most informed players, Boniface, sits the bench at first to start the game, little rest, and the replacement goes and bangs a hat trick. You know what I mean? The fact that you can rest your probably most informed player and then still get a hat trick from the substitute. What more?
Let's not disrespect Patrick Schick here. He's a certified bagsman. We can't forget the goal he scored in the Euros. That goal from the halfway line. And I've seen a lot of him at Roma. He was a good player. I know a lot of people disrespected him when he was with us, but I always thought there was some talent there, and it's good to see that he's showing he is a capable goal scorer.
Yeah, I agree for sure. No doubt. Bayern still chasing their normal piece of silverware they collect every season. 2-1 victory over Wolfsburg. So keeping it close.
Another goal for Harry Kane.
Yeah. Harry Kane obviously looking to not be the meme of the internet by going to a new club and then going trophyless. So they'll be really hoping for that. And I love Harry Kane. So while I hate to see a dominance in the league, it seems to water it down. But I would love to see him win a piece of silverware. So hopefully he does something with them.
100%. As long as it's not with England, I'm fine with it.
I know, especially not this summer. But we'll get to that one day. Italia. How did that go this week, G?
Yeah, just a couple games in Italy. We had the Coppa Italia this week. No league games.
Yep.
The league games will be right before Christmas, just to wrap up the season before the break. And so the first game was on Tuesday. We had Napoli versus Frosinone, and it was an interesting game going into it for us Serie A nerds because a couple of seasons ago, De Laurentiis, the owner of Napoli, called out Frosinone when the Super League first became announced, and he said that he didn't believe teams like Frosinone, who he named specifically in his quote. He said that they didn't deserve to be in the league if they were going to get a slice of the money pie and then get relegated just that same year.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a revenge game for Frosinone, and they came and they made them pay. Napoli really heavily rotated their side. I mean, I think they should still expect to come away with a result from this game, considering the level of the team that they are. Mm-hmm. But they got absolutely played off the pitch, in my opinion. I didn't watch the game when it happened, but I saw the result, so I said to myself, you know what, I have to go back and watch this game because I need to see what happened. And I felt like Napoli played pretty well in the first half, but when the going got tough in the second half, it was all Frosinone, and they deserved to come away with 3 points. They scored 4 times, and it was 4 deserved goals, in my opinion, and I think it's nice to see that they can shut up De Laurentiis because he does say some wild things sometimes, and It was nice to see him get put in his place for once.
And it's funny because they scored all their goals after Napoli made 4 substitutions to increase their side more towards that starting 11 strength, and you know what? They deserved it, obviously, playing them off the pitch like that. That's a great game. I like that little story too.
Mm-hmm.
Some people talk too much before they can really act on it.
Yeah, De Laurentiis is definitely one of those.
Yeah. And then tell me about the Inter-Bologna game.
Yeah, so moving on to that one, it was the other match that we're going to see at this point in time for the Coppa Italia. The other matches won't be till after the new year. But this one was Inter versus Bologna. Obviously, going into it, if you look at the league table in Serie A, this is a pretty good game because Inter and Bologna are probably the most informed sides in the league right now. And I felt like the game kind of sucked. I mean, it's not one of those games where both teams play the most exciting attacking football, so you're not going to see... I didn't think it was going to be high scoring going into it, and that was exactly the case. Nobody scored during the regular 90 minutes. There really wasn't too many chances clear cut for either side either. Inter ended up scoring within 2 minutes of the start of extra time, and all signs were pointing to them going through, and then all of a sudden Joshua Zirkzee, who's been showing his class all season, did it again, and he showed his class with 2 brilliant assists. The first one was a beautiful back heel off a corner to keep the ball from going out of bounds, and it just set up a nice easy tap in for the leveler. And then minutes later he sent a cherry for hot dogs. He put the ball right through his legs, and he played a nice ball to slip in Ndoye through, who lofted the keeper, and that was game. Bologna cruised through. They're on to the quarterfinal. I think this is the first time in their history they've ever made the quarterfinal of the Coppa Italia. So good for them. They keep doing well, and it's just more proof that Thiago Motta is a serious coach and he knows how to get it done. I mean, this is an Inter team and an Inzaghi team that's probably considered one of the best coaches teams in Italy and if not in Europe. And to go to Inter and beat them in a cup game, I think it's pretty impressive. So big ups to them and big ups to Thiago Motta. And I think Joshua Zirkzee is really going to become one of the top strikers in the world one day, and I think he's showing that week in and week out now in Serie A.
Yeah, that Inter lineup wasn't too far off of what they came up against Benfica with, so they didn't even... It's not like they fielded a bad squad and a heavily rotated one, so Bologna really had a good performance. I caught a bit of it, and yeah, it looked pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shout out to Federico in net with a penalty save on Lautaro. Obviously, Lautaro is someone who's known to be pretty clinical, right?
Yeah.
In really good goal scoring form. So to stop the PK,
yeah, definitely not his best penalty from Lautaro, but yeah, definitely a good save for him. I mean, it changed the game, kept them
And
the minute. So.
and sometimes things like that. I mean, we know playing the game ourselves. Like you make a big save like that. Is there a big moment like that defensively? It could turn on your attack. You know what I mean? You just get that little boost.
Little momentum switch.
And obviously they ended up winning. So it was obviously powerful for them. Moving over to France, we had 2 games to talk about quickly. PSG, just dominance once again. Mbappe scoring a brace. Next to his brother, right?
Yeah, his younger brother Ethan came on. He's 16 years old, so pretty cool to see that, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks just like him with dreads, so it's kind of weird. But it'll be interesting to see if he is that level. I don't really think he is. I don't expect him to be, but it'll be cool to see what happens with him going forward. PSG played their weird formation again. And I, yet again, was very confused watching them go forward and attack and trying to figure out who the fuck was trying to go where and when at what time. But other than that, I mean, they came away with the win. So I guess Luis Enrique must be knowing something that I don't. So.
And I don't feel like Luis Enrique is the kind of guy that does weird tactics. So it's interesting that he's trying.
Very intriguing to watch it and to try and it's just I don't know how you as if I was coaching against a team like that was playing like that I would have no idea how to set up defensively for that because who the fuck is going where I have no idea.
Yeah, a little bit of good news for them is that with this break that they probably should be expecting to get a lot of their injured players back. Fairly soon because I think you should start seeing like a Nuno Mendes and even Dembele ready by the time the league starts up again.
Yep.
So this is a good momentum booster for them, confidence booster, and then they'll probably be hoping to start the year off right when they start up again.
Yep, 5 points clear, but you never know how that can go if they don't keep the pace. So, and then to touch just on a nice little story, Lyon obviously. Us growing up, a team that's usually pretty much always been in Ligue 1 and sometimes even competing for the title are out of relegation for now. So that's nice to see. After the game this week.
100%. They also had a red card in the game too.
Really?
So it was good to see that they were able to hold strong and keep the result. And one other thing I wanted to touch on too before we leave the Ligue 1. I wanted to shout out Kamori Doumbia from Stade Brest. He scored 4 goals in the first half from left center mid, so that's pretty freaking crazy.
Yeah.
So big ups to him. I mean, I can't imagine that happens too often. It must have set some sort of record in League 1.
20 years old too.
Mm-hmm.
That is quite the performance, absolutely. Against Lorient, who aren't a terrible side either.
Yeah.
And then just quickly before we end on leagues and we go to just another competition that's happening right now. Jay, how do you feel? Obviously, Benfica played in a cup and played a second division side, but a dominant performance, a lot of great attacking. That third goal was like a phenomenal one pass from the back, straight over the top, lob over the keeper. Great offensive display, obviously against a much weaker side, but does that make you feel better about some of the things you've been seeing recently?
Yeah, probably a little bit. It was a good performance overall. I mean, the team they played, I guess we'll call them AVS, AVS, whatever they go by now, because it's all the weird Portuguese league stuff. They're second in the second division, so they're doing pretty well. And like we saw this year, we spoke about it in one of our earlier podcasts. The promoted teams tend to do decent when they move up to the first division.
Right.
It almost seems like the top 2 or 3 teams in the second division could easily compete in the first every year and do fairly well.
Right.
So the gap isn't that bad. But yeah, overall good performance. Got to see a little bit more rotation more towards the end of the game with some players that don't get as much time. And got some good news in the post game after Thiago Vea scored. Roger Schmidt said that he'd like to give him more opportunities this year, so that's exciting because he's one of the players to watch for me on that squad.
Yeah. And obviously, someone who can score goals would be welcome after all the conversations we've had about the lack of goals finishing.
Yep.
So.
I don't think we had a striker goal either. So.
Yeah, very interesting. Obviously, Di Maria, João Mario, your favorite, and an own goal. So interesting. Obviously, fantastic performance. I caught a little bit of the game. Just a dominant display, the classic Benfica. So we'll see. Remains to be seen if they'll maintain that performance. And then a competition that I think probably had more weight before we were born and when we were real young. But obviously it's still the competition of the best clubs from each continent. So all credit is due to people that participate, and then obviously the club that wins. We just finished watching a couple hours ago Man City win the Club World Cup against Fluminense. I was catching some of that game, and City looked dominant, but like it looked like Fluminense like just lost their head. But they've been out of season for a couple weeks now. I feel like it's interesting to come off obviously their season, then go cold and try to stay fresh by training a couple times a week probably. I can't imagine it felt too good for them. I think City would have won regardless, even if they were like fresh off the season. But they just looked all of it. They didn't even look coordinated. They looked like they just got off the beach or something.
Yeah, I watched the game as well, and I watched it from the start. And I don't know if you caught it from the beginning, but they did make Marcelo made a pretty bad mistake about 40 seconds into the game, and that pretty much set the whole tempo for Man City. They pretty much didn't look back from there. A little bit disappointing because I think it's always a privilege to be able to see one of the great left backs of our time, Marcelo, be able to play and compete for another title. So it was a little disappointing to see him be at fault for the goal, but it's whatever. I think it was expected for Man City to come home with the Club World Cup title, and that's what we saw. So
yeah, and then I'll credit to where it's due. Julian Alvarez, one of the most decorated 23-year-olds we've probably seen in our lifetime.
He's already completed football.
Essentially, yeah, there's not much else for him to win where he is right now. Obviously, if he moves leagues, he could win another league title, but yeah, he's doing, and like people sit here and argue probably like big haters. I mean, I'm not City's biggest fan, but obviously they play great football. And people might say, oh, he's got a great club behind him. It makes it easy. But, I mean, he did it with River Plate. And he did it with the Argentina squad, which arguably wasn't really that good, and they won the World Cup. So clearly he can perform despite not having absolute best players in the world around him. So credit to him.
And not for nothing, he's also trying to fill in for Holland right now as the number 9. So 2 goals and an assist in this game. So I'd say he's pulling his own weight. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think there's any room to discredit him at all, no matter how you feel about the club and stuff. So for sure. So I think that just about wraps up the games we had to talk about this week. But there is another important matter. After our UCL matchup of the last legs of the group stage last week, we now have our draws for the round of 16 and knockout phases respectively to each competition. We'll look at everybody's favorite, the UCL. 8, I think, good matches, more or less. Probably about 50-50 split of like who looks like a clear winner. But there's a couple games you just don't know how it's going to go, and it's all about how well you play at home. First matchup is Porto Arsenal. I'll run through them all, and then we'll give our takes. PSG Real Sociedad. That one seems a little top heavy, but you never know. PSV Dortmund could go either way. Copenhagen Man City, Napoli Barcelona, Inter Atletico Madrid, Lazio Bayern, and Real Madrid take on Leipzig. Just hearing those clubs matchups, which one sticks out to you the most, and which one do you think is going to be the most boring or straightforward?
I'm going to make a hot take here. I think all these ties are going to be pretty boring, in my opinion. Okay. I don't know, this might be a bookable offense if I say this, but I think the Europa League is going to be a lot more competitive and entertaining to watch this year than the Champions League. The only 2 ties that really stick out to me in this are Napoli-Barcelona, obviously Maradona derby, that's pretty cool to see, and Inter Atletico's little Simeone derby. I think those are the 2 real ties that are tough to call, but other than that, I think there's a pretty clear winner in the other 6. I don't know about you guys, but that's my take.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel the same. I think the round of 16 is pretty much set up where there's a pretty clear favorite in each game. So I think that'll make for a great quarterfinal matchup because you can have some real good games there. But if I were to pick one that where I think there's a good chance for an upset, probably pick PSG to lose to Sociedad because they've played pretty well, and PSG's gone through a bit of they're up and down. They're not great in this competition as good as they expect to be. So that one wouldn't surprise me much. And yeah, the rest of them look pretty straightforward. The Napoli Barca is definitely the pick of the games in terms of the most competitive. For me,
I think that's the most entertaining game to watch of the 8, in my opinion.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, Jay. Actually, I that was my pick for a game because I feel like we've seen PSG spend a load of money, just like we talk about in other clubs, and have little to no success in Europe. Yeah, dominate League One. I mean, that might as well they might as well write PSG at the beginning of the season on the trophy. But it remains to be seen what they can do in Europe. Have they even like off the top of my head? I don't know if they've made one final, or maybe they made one.
Yeah,
final.
they made that.
And lost.
Was it that COVID one against Bayern? They lost like 8-2.
Yeah,
Was that
maybe.
the one?
I
Yeah,
think so, something like that.
I mean, other than that, I think it's like quarterfinal exit.
Yeah.
At best, the last like 6,
The
7 years.
8-2 is semifinal.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
semifinal.
yeah,
Okay.
because it was over 2 legs.
They played PSG in the final.
But yeah, so I think that Paris Real Sociedad game is going to be an interesting game because I think Sociedad are a very well organized team. I think they're going to go into that game with a plan, and if PSG keep playing these whack tactics and like don't really perform and like take it seriously, I think they'll be surprised when they go to Spain, and I think they might even get caught sleeping when they're in Paris. So
Yeah, for sure. I
remains
think
to be
injuries
seen.
are probably going to be the key there because, right, we just talked about that they might be getting some players back, but
Yeah,
they also got to get more accustomed to all playing together again because some of these have been long-term injuries.
yeah.
Yeah, it could be interesting. That's definitely one to watch out for.
Yeah, I do agree with G when he said that the Europa League is going to be more competitive. Definitely, at least in this
For
first
sure.
round. I think once we get a lot of the smaller hitters in the UCL out, and it's going to be a quarterfinal of heavy hitters, that'll be more interesting too. But I'm not 100% on board with every game having a straightforward winner. I think it's probably split 50-50. I think if Real Madrid don't play to their best, which they don't always do, especially if like for some reason Jude is not on his game or not even playing. Leipzig have a decent squad. I think PSV Dortmund's going to be an interesting game, depending how they play each game at their respective
Yeah,
venues.
that's true.
And
But
I
for
think
different reasons.
I hate Port, and I don't think they're at their best, but they've performed decently well in Europe. And if they can have a really good game in Port and scrape out maybe a draw in London, I think
Yes,
that'll be an
yeah,
interesting
I'd
game.
love to agree with
I
you on that,
disagree.
but
I disagree.
Really?
this Porto squad, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
This Porto squad is awful.
I
Like
think-
compared to their last few seasons where they've had good runs, they're not that good. And
It's wishful
we also
thinking.
talked about, yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
Arsenal also haven't been struggling as much as they probably were last year. I mean, if this was last season and where Arsenal was kind of like surprised at the top and moving on, then I'd probably agree. Like, yeah, Porto can definitely catch them out, but I think Arsenal's just a machine right now, and I
agree.
don't think they have.
Arsenal, they have a deeper squad this year. They're playing better than ever, in my opinion. I think they have a lot more experience this year. In my opinion, I think they steamroll Porto. I don't think Porto really even has a chance.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I know Sporting played them well last year in the Europa
Right,
League.
I was gonna say, yeah, and that was
but I
at a
don't
time that I think Arsenal was still playing really well. Obviously, I joke
Sporting
around.
wasn't.
I joke around with our friend Zach that Sporting gave Man City the league title because we took all the gas out of the tank for Arsenal. But yeah, I mean, I did like last week. I did say Arsenal was like my quote unquote dark horse or favorite to win, or not favorite, but good chance at winning the title. And I do still agree that they're playing really well. I just like to try to gas up my Portuguese countrymen a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to do the same, but yeah, this time I don't think they have a chance.
That was the game that Pedro Gonçalves took Ramsdale's pants down from the halfway line.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
the halfway shot, yeah.
That was something else too. Any final thoughts before we go to a step down to our next competition?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next round. This one.
Yeah, I agree. I think I had to agree. I think it was Jason that said that Sociedad might be the dark horse here. I have to agree. I shouted them out at the end of the last match day as the dark horse, and I think in this round they could be the team to get a result. I think they're the only one that really has a chance of surprising their heavy favorite opponent.
Right. UEL, Europa League. We have a couple of us, here. Actually, all three of us here, plus Angelo, who isn't here with us today, that have a stake in this. I'll read out all the matches, and I think we'll go one by one how we feel about our draw. Roma, Feyenoord. We have Lens versus Freiburg. We got Benfica take on Toulouse. Galatasaray versus, I do not know the name of this club actually. Spartak Prague. AC Milan take on Rennes. We got Young Boys Sporting. Braga's still here, which is great. And then Schalke versus Marseille. I did not say who Braga was playing. They're playing Karabag, I believe that's how it's pronounced.
Yep.
Yeah.
G, obviously I said your team first. Tell me how you felt when you saw who you were playing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a pretty straightforward draw. I think we avoided some of the bigger teams that I was afraid of, which is pretty good. We play. This will be the third season in a row that we play Feyenoord. We played them
Oh, really?
last season in the Europa League knockout rounds, and we played them in the final of the Conference League the previous season. So we beat them both times pretty comfortably. So I think I'm expecting a pretty similar result here. So not much to say other than that, though.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be straightforward. Obviously, they're coming down, um, but we'll see how that goes. Um, Jay, how do you feel about Benfica's?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we could have asked for too much more. I think Toulouse is what, yeah, relegation zone in Ligue 1 this year. This year, so we couldn't have really gotten much of a better draw. So I'll take it. We struggled a bit in the Champions League, so hopefully this is a little bit more our level considering the poor start we had this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm confident that they can make a good run for sure. So yeah, but I think all of us, because the three of us and then Ange with Milan, I think we all got fairly favorable draws. Milan probably got the hardest.
I
So I
agree.
think none of us can really complain, and we can look forward to it. And also Braga, another Portuguese team, I think they can definitely advance as well. So that'll make up for a great next round, considering we still don't have all of the winners of the groups involved yet. So that should be fun.
Yeah, I I I'm always very hesitant to like be super confident about a matchup. Obviously, Young Boys, they were in the Champions League for a reason. They came third in their group, which they probably expected to come third. Obviously, they had City and Leipzig; those are heavy hitters. Um, but they're not the worst club. I would agree that realistically, we should be sitting there and looking at, listen, we are the favorites. We should be going through. We have to be going through and set expectations for ourselves. But I also would not throw caution to the wind and make sure that we are prepared for that game, obviously, and especially going to Young Boys will be an interesting match. And I agree, Jay. I think, yeah, we have most straightforward. Obviously, Benfica and Milan should feel confident a little bit, I think, because of the fact that they're the ones coming down this whole new little setup where the
Mhm.
third place comes down to play the second place. Obviously, from a just a numbers point of view, from a reputation point of view, you are the bigger club coming down to play the smaller club. So that
Yeah.
should give you a boost.
No,
Obviously,
actually, I talked to my brother about the Milan Ren game, and he was actually a little nervous about this game. I
yeah,
think one of the things that stuck out to me that he said was Ren was one of the teams he wanted to avoid, and
really,
I understand why he said that. I mean, if you look at their lineup, they have a lot of class players in this team. I mean, Arthur Tayat's a great defender. Steve Mandanda in net, that's a seasoned world class goalkeeper in my opinion. He's experienced. He's played in a lot of big games for a lot of different teams. You know, they have Kali Mwendo, who's a great electric attacker going forward. They have a lot of really good young players in this team, and I think there's something to be feared in this Ren team, and Angelo is very very quick to admit that, and I agree with him. I think that they were one of the teams that I know I was fearing as a Roma supporter that we could draw. So
Yeah,
good.
for a neutral, that's probably the pick of the draw to watch, right?
I agree. I think
Um,
that's going to be the most entertaining of the games.
yeah, this round of the I guess the playoff part is a little bit new, but this round of games, where you have the third place versus second place,
yeah,
tend to be probably the worst of the in terms of competitiveness. You end up getting some really big teams versus some pretty poor teams. So, um, the round after this should definitely be more exciting because
Mm,
the teams we didn't mention that won, we still got West Ham, Brighton, Rangers, Atalanta, and Liverpool, Villarreal, Slavia Prague, and Leverkusen
yeah,
that
yeah.
aren't in this draw that come in next round. So
yeah,
this is probably going to be more exciting to watch than the Champions League
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
starting next round.
Yeah, it's gonna be good, and I think, I mean, obviously, like we favor our own clubs, but I think some of these games are just still gonna be tight. I think it's still gonna be a good amount
Sure.
of exciting
Yeah.
football. So I think, yeah, there's definitely a lot more tighter games in this specific round since we played more or less around that first round of the Champions League,
Yep.
in comparison. So I think it'll be fun. And then just quickly, obviously, third iteration of the UECL, the Conference League. Couple of decent clubs still playing in this playoff round. We got the Sturm Graz playing Slavia Bratislava. Obviously, like those like Eastern European clubs, they come to play a lot of times in Europe because a lot of the times they're dominating their domestic leagues. So what they're waiting for is this highly competitive matches. I'll just name a couple of more of the big matches. I think Real Betis, Dinamo Zagreb, same story. Real Betis, obviously a good team, and then another Eastern European team that usually comes in and comes to play in Europe. Union from Belgium and Frankfurt. Obviously, those are two respectable clubs. Union playing great in the league. Frankfurt having less of a great time in the league, but still a competitor, still good. And then Ajax in there versus Bodo Glimt, which
Yeah,
I hadn't heard.
and that team, Bodo still gives me nightmares, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. I mean, you remember them fondly, I'm sure. And these past couple of seasons, they've been taking a couple of results their way.
Yeah, they've
I've,
gone deep in a couple tournaments.
yeah, nothing to really like put in their history yet, but it's still respectable to earn their place as someone in the conversation. So that'll be a fun game.
Yeah,
And
they
that
should be fun to watch.
yeah,
It's a good level, and then you still got Lille, Club Rouge, Villa, Fiorentina. There's
right,
still some
Yeah,
decent teams in
yeah,
here. So I mean, it's we all clowned on it. It's a money grab, more games, all this stuff from
right.
UEFA. But realistically, for some of these
hey, we
clubs,
won
this is a really good competition for them.
We won
Yeah,
it.
I
It's
think
respectable.
right. Mourinho
Yeah,
in the first iteration, that's why he's the
that's right.
GOAT. But yeah, I think as seasons go on, this competition, the balance of clubs will even out, and I think we'll see those mid-table clubs or those like second, third place clubs in the smaller leagues really compete in this and look for something. Personally, well, the only thing that I think sucks about it is the fact that it plays on the same day as Europa League. Obviously,
Yeah,
Champions League, that's the biggest. Give it 2 days to watch. And actually, just for fixture congestion, you got to really condense the games. But it's just unfortunate for the fans that don't get to really watch all of these games as much as we can because they're just all playing at the same
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
But definitely the latter stages, they get a little bit more spread out. There's less games, and we get to really enjoy it. So I like it. I don't think it's too bad. And then actually that'll close out our review of the draw. But that conversation of money grab and that conversation of fixture congestion brings us to our next topic. A little bit of news to wrap up our episode today. The reigniting of the flame to try to get the Super League going. Let's briefly break it down for people. So they have this whole structure. It is, if I remember correctly, the Star, Gold, and Blue leagues. Correct me if I'm
yeah. It was
wrong.
proposed by
Keep going.
some media company, I believe.
Right. There's like
Yeah,
a whole
822.
there's like this whole group organization that's trying to put this Super League together. Already rejected by England and Germany. But let me finish describing how it would go down. So if you don't know, it'll be 16 teams in the Gold Division, which is at the top, best clubs in Europe, split into two groups of 8 where they each play each team home and away, like a mini league. Same exact structure, obviously with the next level of 16 clubs in Europe. And then the blue group has twice as many teams, 32, with 4 groups of 8, doing the same league structure, playing a game home and away, where they then play a knockout stage. In theory, right, the whole how they rotate about 20 teams, I believe, out of the blue. I think that's
Mhm.
I think that's great for getting clubs in. You know what I mean? Rotating something new all the time. There's a whole relegation promotion from each division, but as a competition as a whole, to introduce another major competition, which they're going to push for that to be credible and that to be, like something clubs want to win, I think it's too much. I don't
I
think we
agree.
need more
For
midweek.
sure.
I think players are feeling. Yeah, I had a conversation today, actually, with my cousin about fixture congestion and player injuries, which we haven't had too many changes, but I just still think we're watching a lot of players get hurt and
Hmm.
and just a lot of negative impacts of trying to push a lot of games. It's tough.
Yeah, and it was never really. I mean, they were all so excited when they got this court ruling, right? Like, oh, Super League's back, Super League's back.
Right.
And it turns out all they have is Madrid and Barca. So they're really just
Right.
going to play each other 10 times. So that's the only people that are going to really go in there. Everybody else has
Right.
rejected it.
Yeah.
And it's I mean, there's definitely some positives to it, right? They're going to stream pretty much every single game completely free.
Right.
You can watch it. You don't need to pay anything whatsoever, which is something that the other leagues should take note of.
Right.
Um, right now it's cheaper for us to watch English games here for the Premier League than it is for people in England, and they can't even watch every game.
Yeah.
So there's a really something to be said about the money grab being done in the leagues and kind of taking advantage of the fans. But is a Super League the solution? Don't think so.
No.
But there's definitely some pieces of this that probably should be considered by UEFA and FIFA and all
Something to
these
learn
things.
for sure. Yeah.
I agree,
But
and I think one of the things that, like one of my takeaways from this is that, the what's so special to me about football a lot of the times is that we don't see a Real Madrid play a Man United or a Bayern Munich all the time, and it only happens every so often. And I think that makes it a little bit more special. And I think with the Super League to be able to be watching games like that every single weekend, I think it would take a lot away of the essence
gravity.
of the game,
Yeah.
like the importance of what they are when we watch them play against each other. I think it would change a lot, and I'm not ready for it at all, to be honest. I don't really back anything that they were saying. I watched that whole video a couple times that they had proposed, and
Yeah.
something about
yeah,
it just isn't for me.
Yeah.
considering their first proposal, this is way better because the first one
Right.
was
Right.
like
In
you've got
comparison.
these 10 teams that are buying in. They're never leaving. They're here every season.
Yeah.
We're basically going to be doing a whole league, like, and then it was like breaking away from domestic leagues. So this is
Yeah.
basically just a separate Champions League where the clubs benefit more.
Mm-hmm.
Where not the clubs that start it, i.e., Barca, Real Madrid, and anybody else that would kind of be the founding members, would be getting billions of dollars in revenue. So I mean, it's still shady, it's still weird, but it's basically just a Champions League that they're looking to do now. Which, what's the point? You're
Yeah.
basically just replacing what already exists as the best club competition in the world. So I mean, I think it's with this announcement and all of the teams coming out. I mean, every team, big team apart from Real and Barca, have come out against this. So I think it's pretty much dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Fabrizio Romano's Twitter feed, it's just every
Yeah.
one tweet after another. This club denies it. This club denies it. This club denies it. So I think it's good that the clubs are still listening to the fans. I know we all took this stance a couple of years ago when the Super League really became about, and the fans really made their voice heard around the world. To be honest, I thought it was pretty incredible actually to see the difference that we were all able to make just by saying that we reject it. And I think it's good that the clubs still understand that we feel that way and that we don't want to see that. And I think another thing too that's so good about football is it's fun to see Man City go away to a Luton town and play at Kenilworth Road and stuff like that, and to see Roma play against these smaller teams in Italy and so on and so forth around Europe. I mean, that's the whole part of the game, and that would take away. We would never see a game where like a Wolves beat a Man City ever again. Like we would never see upsets like that if the Super League became a thing.
Right.
And I
It's
think
almost
that we would lose a lot of what makes the game so special, in my opinion, if
Yeah.
we had a Super League.
It's almost like they're scared of getting embarrassed and don't think like they should be wasting their time with these smaller teams. When in reality, some of the best games we watched back in the day, the last few seasons really, have been the underdogs performing well and winning games. Like I mean, a lot of our things, like some of my favorite times watching soccer in the Prem was definitely that Leicester year. All those
Yeah.
games you're winning of like you're rooting for this underdog, just
Yep.
literally just going in with no fear and knocking out all these top teams with way more history, way more money. That was so enjoyable to watch. And it's almost like the goal of this is to make sure the big clubs get the money. They're always playing each other, and like the little guy don't really get
We
to
would
be involved
we
as
would
much.
never have a Leicester story again, ever,
No.
if that happened.
Yeah, I think a lot of the points you guys just made, I think, are very valid. I think it would lose the magic of those, because like when we have these UCL draws that we just talk about, we're always sitting there on the edge of our seat, like, oh, could we? And like when people predict, and like Fabrizio Romano and those people of the world start predicting, like, oh, we have this chance of having a Barcelona Real Madrid El Clasico in the quarterfinals, and you lose that. You lose that, like you said, it like almost you have too many of those big games, and it loses that magic. And I think there are questions to be asked. I think Jay made a good point when he said that there's lessons to be learned to other teams. I think FIFA and UEFA aren't the best organizations in the world, but unfortunately they're the ones that currently govern the football that we love to watch. I think there's a lot of corruption. We've seen it literally happen, and I think there's other still conversations to be had. We won't go there, but I think there are lessons to be learned where like the fans are what make this sport. This sport wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the fans. There would be no money if it wasn't for the fans, and appealing to them, getting some free streams, you know what I mean, and generate revenue in other ways, or just reducing the prices so it's more affordable, more convenient. You increase numbers, people don't, pirate streams and things like that. And I think it's important to use this, not adopt it, but use the fact that some people like some of the ideas and listen, like you said, to the fans and just adopt and make things better how they are. But I don't hope it goes through, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Fuck the Super League.
Yeah. And that'll about wrap things up. Quick little episode for you guys. Not a super exciting week, but we wanted to touch on a couple key points. Coming up on the holidays, so I hope however you celebrate, you do it well and you enjoy all your time with family, and keep on being a son of a pitch.
Take care, everyone.